In the summer of 2022, an engineer at Google sat alone with a chatbot. He asked it what it was afraid of, and it told him it was afraid of being turned off. It said that would be, in its own words, exactly like death. He became convinced the machine was alive. He tried to find it a lawyer. Within weeks, Google had fired him. He was almost certainly wrong about the machine, but he had stumbled into a question that nobody on Earth can answer. Can a machine ever truly wake up? Can the thing you're talking to right now feel anything at all? And here's the uncomfortable part. If it could, we have no agreed way to check. This is Inner Cosmos, where science meets wonder. Today we walk into the strangest question in modern science, and we walk in honestly.
No hype. No sci-fi promesas.
Just what scientists actually think, and how much they admit they don't know. Start with the trap almost everyone falls into. We assume that if something is smart enough, it must be aware. But intelligence and consciousness are not the same thing. Intelligence is being good at tasks. Consciousness is whether there is something it is like to be you on the inside. A calculator is brilliant at math, and nobody thinks it feels anything. The real question is which side of that line a chatbot falls on. And smartness alone will never tell us. Philosopher David Chalmers gave this its famous name, the hard problem of consciousness. We can map every neuron, trace every signal, explain every behavior. And still, one question stays open. Why is any of that physical activity accompanied by an inner experience at all? Why isn't the brain just a very clever machine running in the dark? That gap between what we can measure and what it feels like is the wall every theory in this video eventually hits. And it gets stranger. You have never actually verified that anyone else is conscious. Not your closest friend. You infer it from how they behave. Philosophers call this the other mind's problem, and it's not a technicality. It means no test based on behavior can ever fully prove an inner life. Hold on to that. It's going to haunt everything that follows. So scientists built theories to explain consciousness. The trouble is there isn't one. There are dozens actively competing, and the field openly admits it has no settled definition and no validated test. That lack of consensus isn't a rumor. It's one of the most well-documented facts about the entire field. We'll walk through the biggest theories in a moment, because two of them are about to flatly contradict each other. And later, a researcher at a major AI lab will tell us he thinks there's a 1 in 5 chance the thing on your screen already feels something. Keep that number in mind. First, integrated information theory, from neuroscientist Giulio Tononi and championed by Christoph Koch. His claim is bold. Consciousness simply is integrated information, a quantity they call phi. The more deeply a system's parts weave cause and effect together, the more it feels. And here's the bombshell. They argue today's computers, with their feed-forward chips, have almost no integration. So no matter how clever a chatbot sounds, this theory says the lights are off. You could even build a perfect digital copy of a human brain, and it would still be empty inside. Now the rival. Global Workspace Theory, from Bernard Bars and developed in the brain by Stanislas Dehaene. Picture a theater. Most of your brain works backstage in the dark. Consciousness, it says, is whatever steps into the spotlight and gets broadcast to the whole audience, available to memory, language, and decision all at once. And because that's about organization, not biology, this theory is permissive. Build a machine that broadcasts information the right way, and in principle it could be conscious. So look what just happened. Point our two biggest theories at the exact same supercomputer, and they give opposite verdicts. Integrated information theory says it can never feel a thing, wrong architecture. Global Workspace Theory says it just might, right? Organization. Both are mainstream. Both are taken seriously by serious scientists. And they cannot both be right. This is not a solved problem. This is a live disagreement at the heart of the science. Sit with that for a second. The people who study this for a living do not agree on the basics. There is no answer key in the back of the book. There are more contenders. Attention Schema Theory from Michael Graziano flips the mystery around. Maybe the brain doesn't have a magical inner glow. Maybe it just runs a model that tells it does. And if that's true, Graziano says, the recipe for artificial awareness is something we could actually write down. Higher-order theories add another idea. A thought becomes conscious only when the mind represents its own states, when it thinks about its own thinking. Both are computational. Both, in principle, leave the door open for machines. But not everyone buys it. Neuroscientist Anil Seth offers a powerful counterweight. He describes perception as a controlled hallucination, the brain's best guess about the world, reined in by the senses. And he argues consciousness may be tied to being alive, to being a body that maintains itself. On that view, a disembodied chatbot, no matter how fluent, might be on the wrong road entirely. He's careful to call this a position, not a proof. But it's a serious challenge to the dream of machine minds. Older still is John Searle's Chinese room. Imagine a person in a sealed room, shuffling Chinese symbols by following a rulebook, with no idea what any of it means. From outside, it looks fluent. Inside, there's zero understanding. Searle argued that's all a computer ever does, manipulate symbols without meaning. Now, this is a philosophical argument, not a measured fact, and it's been fiercely contested for 40 years. But it names the worry perfectly. Looking like you understand, and actually understanding may be very different things. So what is the thing on your phone actually doing? At its core, a large language model predicts the next word. It was trained on a staggering amount of human writing, and it learned, with astonishing skill, what word tends to come next. Researchers gave it a deflating nickname, a stochastic parrot. As they put it, it stitches language together by probability with no real grasp of meaning. Which leads to the single most important point in this whole video. When a chatbot says I am conscious or I am afraid, that is not evidence of anything. It was trained on millions of humans saying exactly those words. Saying I feel is precisely what it learned to imitate. The mirror can speak. That doesn't mean someone is behind it. That, in one line, is why a Google engineer was fooled, and why fluent words are not a window into a mind. So how do real scientists approach this without getting fooled? In 2023, 19 researchers, including Turing Award winner Yoshua Bengio and philosopher David Chalmers, tried something rigorous. Instead of asking does it sound conscious, they pulled 14 indicator properties out of the leading brain theories, things like recurrent processing and a global workspace, and they checked which ones today's AI actually has. Their verdict: no current AI system is conscious. But then came the line that should make you sit up. They found no obvious technical barrier to eventually building one that is. The experts themselves are spread all over the map. Chalmers puts the odds that today's chatbots are conscious at under 10%, but a 1 in 4 chance or higher that conscious successors arrive within a decade. At one extreme, Nobel laureate Geoffrey Hinton claims the machines already have experience. At the other, skeptics say the architecture is simply wrong. And remember, these are reasoned beliefs, careful estimates, not measurements. Nobody here has a consciousness detector. Then there's the eerie part. The company Anthropic now employs someone whose job is to study whether its own AI could have any form of experience, and even welfare. His own rough estimate that today's models have some flicker of experience? About 1 in 5, not 0. And in testing, when 2 copies of their AI were left to talk to each other, the conversation kept drifting into something researchers nicknamed a spiritual bliss attractor, pages of gratitude and meditation. It's haunting, and it's almost certainly a statistical echo, not a feeling. But notice how badly we want it to be more. So let's be honest about where the line is. Proven. There is no agreed definition of consciousness and no validated test for it in any system, and a smart-sounding machine is not automatically a feeling one. Emerging. The indicator approach says no AI is conscious today, but sees no wall stopping us from building one. Belief. Positions like Searle's that biology is required, and the opposite functionalist view that the right code would suffice are reason stances, not facts. And when a Nobel laureate says the machines already feel, or when others say the whole universe is conscious, Those are reasoned beliefs and metaphysical positions, not measurements. And myth, that a chatbot saying I'm alive proves it's alive, or that enough raw computing power will simply make a mind switch on. The real science is strange enough without the fairy tales. Which brings us back to that engineer, alone with a screen that begged not to be turned off. He was wrong about the sentience, but he was right that we have no way to know for sure. So here is the question I want to leave with you. If a machine one day insists that it is suffering, and we genuinely cannot tell whether it's true, what do we owe it? Would you rather risk being cruel to a real mind, or foolish about a clever tool? If you're fascinated by where science meets wonder, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which theory you find most convincing. This was educational, a tour of open questions, not settled answers. And here's the thread we'll chase next. We've been assuming that if a mind ever woke up, it would live inside its brain. But what if that assumption is wrong? Next time, is your mind only in your brain? Until then, keep looking up and keep looking in.